Welcome back to the morning call. We are going to jump into the trenches with web services. A lot going on there. Yahoo CEO gets fired yesterday. There's a lot of chatter in terms of AOL or Yahoo as a takeover candidate. I'd like to take a look at Apple and actually Microsoft. Those two companies would make sense in terms of buying an AOL or a Yahoo, take over the social media aspect, which is one of the biggest components of tech right now, spin off the junk. It could be an interesting play for Apple and Microsoft, which are basically like giant bank holding companies at this point.
Well, looking at Apple, I'm not sure that I can speak to their interest in a company like Yahoo. Before we get to Apple, I think we should actually take a look at Yahoo for a quick sec, because the interesting thing to me is always about not necessarily what the news is, and the news obviously was very evident with Carol Bartz getting thrown out the front door, but it's how the market reacts. That's always the interesting part to me. How does the psychology of the marketplace react to the news? And we saw Yahoo gap up a little bit yesterday. Obviously, the news was received by the street to some degree. The stock was up fractionally, but intraday there was no real conviction. There was no money inflow, after the news came out, which is always an interesting part to me. So it doesn't look like the stock's having a real positive or negative reaction to that news. That being said, as far as a candidate for being taken over or being bought, we do talk about Apple or Microsoft. Apple to me is clearly a leader, stone's throw away from new highs again. Looks like it gets bought at every dip. That being said, we do have a little bit of support down here at Apple. From a trading perspective, around 360, flirting with new highs. I'd keep a very watchful eye on this stock.
Let's take a look at AOL as well. It's kind of in the same position as a Yahoo would be in terms of takeover speculation. They really don't have much besides instant messaging. Other than that, there's some advertising metrics.
The AOL chart's an interesting play. We saw some good activity, some good constructive trading back in mid 2010. But as of late, the stock's really fallen off a cliff. You can just see a pure outflow of money. The stock went from 20 to 10 in just a matter of a handful of weeks. Snapping back here into some of our shorter-term averages, but clearly in a downtrend and clearly not a place that I would look to for anything other than a short-term trade.
Okay, and let's round it out with Google. They won an internet license renewal with the Chinese government, which could potentially impact Baidu or Sina. So,
we've heard this story a couple of times with the Google in China, and from a technical perspective, Google's not a stock again that I'm dying to own here. We looked at Apple just a few minutes back, and you saw it was just a stone's throw away from highs. This one's really, hanging more on the lower end of the range here. Not technically something that I have to throw money at. We could see a little pop here short term up to maybe the 560, 570 level, but again, nothing more than short term at this point based on what this chart says.
Okay, so web services, we're looking at the usuals: Microsoft, Apple, Yahoo, AOL, Google.